The truth about how good people become monsters. We like to think of monsters as born, not made. We envision evil as an immediate, sharp break in a person's soul. It's the sudden arrival of something monstrous that's foreign to us. But what if the truth is quieter? What if it's slower? What if monstrosity isn't a thunderclap, but a drip, drip, drip over time? What if the path to monstrosity is paved with rational choices, with loyalty, with duty, with moments where someone says, I didn't have a choice? This is the story we don't tell often enough. It's not the story of the wicked corrupting the world. It's not about the evil genius twisting others to do his bidding. It's about how the good, the well-intentioned, the moral, how they become the very thing they once feared. And it doesn't start with hatred. It doesn't begin in fury. It begins with a choice that seems harmless at first, and then another, and another, until those choices build something unrecognizable. We like to believe we're immune. We say, I could never do that. But history doesn't care about what we believe. It doesn't care about our declarations. It simply shows us ordinary people doing extraordinary harm, not because they were born cruel, but because they followed orders, because they trusted the wrong leader, because they convinced themselves that they were still the good guys. Goodness isn't armor. It's not a permanent badge we wear. It's a choice, a fragile, fleeting one. And that choice can be rewritten, under pressure, under fear, or under convenience. What happens when a good person's integrity is tested? What happens when they're offered power or protection at the expense of someone else's dignity? The transformation from good to monstrous rarely begins with violence. It starts with a whisper, a quiet us versus them. A subtle shift that goes unnoticed at first, and suddenly, you're on the right side. You're doing good. You're part of something bigger. And the other side? They're the problem. They're the enemy. They're different. They don't matter as much. This is where the monster begins to breathe. Not in rage, but in self-righteousness. It's the belief that because your cause is noble, anything you do in its name is justified. You are the hero in your story. The others are villains, or at best, obstacles. And that's where the corruption starts. Not in hatred, but in purpose. Purpose becomes the lens through which everything is justified. Actions, decisions, even cruelty. It's all justified by the cause. People don't wake up and decide to hurt others. It's not that simple. Instead, they're given a system, a uniform, a task, a cause, and they're told, you're not responsible. You're just doing your job. Responsibility is outsourced. Morality is divided. It's no longer personal. It's institutional. And suddenly, the unthinkable becomes routine. It becomes part of the job description. This is not fiction. This is what Hannah Arendt described as the banality of evil, the quiet, bureaucratic cruelty carried out by ordinary people, the ones who don't see themselves as evil. They don't see themselves as monsters. They see themselves as workers, as soldiers, as citizens doing their duty. It's chilling, isn't it? How easy it is to become complicit when you're just following orders, when you're just doing what everyone else is doing, when you're just carrying out a task without thinking of the consequences. Think about the foot soldiers in history's darkest regimes, not the leaders who orchestrated atrocities, but the ones who carried out the orders, the teachers, the farmers, the parents, the ordinary people who, one day, followed a command that cost someone else their dignity, their freedom, or their life. It wasn't personal. It wasn't about hatred. It was about obedience, about duty. But the hardest part, the most unsettling part, they didn't laugh like villains. They prayed before bed. They tucked in their children. They believed in their country. They thought they were part of something greater. And yet they closed the door on humanity. This is the moment when evil becomes banal. It's not about doing bad things out of hatred. It's about doing them because they seem necessary, because they seem right, because they seem like the only option. Psychology calls this moral disengagement. It's a psychological process that allows people to justify harmful behavior without feeling guilt or shame. It's the brain's way of creating distance from the consequences of its actions. It's when a person convinces themselves that they aren't responsible for the harm they cause. Instead, they tell themselves, they deserve it. It's for the greater good. I'm just protecting my people. And with every step, they begin to see themselves as the good guys, the ones who are in the right, the ones who are justified, and that's how atrocities become invisible to the ones committing them, because they no longer see their actions as wrong, they see them as necessary. Think about the language we use in times of war. The enemy is rarely referred to as people. They're dehumanized. They're called the enemy, the invaders, the other, monsters, cockroaches, rats. Once the enemy stops being human, once they are reduced to a category or a label, their suffering becomes easier to ignore. Their deaths become statistics. And when their humanity is erased, we stop seeing them as individuals. We stop seeing them as people like us. And once that happens, the line between good and evil becomes even blurrier. Eventually, the war ends, the regime falls, the orders stop. And what's left? Silence, questions, guilt. Some people don't feel it right away. They don't recognize the harm they've done until years later. Others wake up and ask, how did I become this person? Why didn't I resist? What happened to me? Regret is a slow poison. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It's that quiet voice that says, you knew better. You could have stopped it. You were part of it. A retired officer looks at an old photo. A factory worker remembers the names they forgot. A parent tries to explain their silence to their children. And they wonder, how did I let this happen? What kind of person have I become? This isn't just a history lesson. It's a warning. Because the next time it happens, it won't look like horror. It won't look like evil. It'll look like rules, like security, like patriotism, like loyalty, like just doing your job. But here's the thing. There's a way out. There's a way to stop the monster before it's born. Awareness is a weapon. When you understand how good people fall into evil, you also learn how to resist it. You can stop before the order is given. You can pause before the decision is made. You can ask, is this right? Am I doing the right thing? Who will suffer for my choice? And that moment of hesitation is powerful, because it's in that space where you decide, do I become part of the problem, or do I become part of the solution? Every generation is handed the same test. It may not come as a grand, dramatic decision. It may come in small, quiet moments. But the test is always the same. Will you be a part of the system? Or will you stand up and resist? Will you remember that you have a choice? Or will you forget like so many before you? We must remember that goodness isn't an armor we wear forever. It's a choice, and we must choose it every day. Because at the end of the day, evil isn't just about what we do. It's about what we allow. It's about what we turn a blind eye to. And the hardest truth to face is that sometimes we're the ones who allow it. We're the ones who look the other way. We're the ones who turn silence into complicity. But we can choose to stop. We can choose to break the cycle. And that's the choice that makes all the difference.